Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Lewinter with my lovely co-host, acupuncture partner, and mom, Dr. Andrea Lewinter. Mom, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing great. You excited about today's topic?
I'm very excited. I think it's going to be a very, very helpful topic for a lot of people.
I think it is going to be a very helpful topic, and today we're going to be talking about using the technique moxibustion, a thermal technique, a warming technique on the fifth toe to help with breech presentation.
And the fifth toe is the baby toe.
That's right. That's right. Going to warm that baby toe with a little moxa to help get the baby in the right position.
That's great, Mark. I'd like to offer for a lot of viewers that do not know what moxa is to give a brief explanation of what moxa is.
Excellent. Please do.
No, I was asking you to do it.
Oh, great. Classic, classic mother mother son dynamic there. Yeah. Well, great news. That has already been done several years ago, and I will put the link in the video description below. And in that video description, I list several types of application of moxibustion. So it's a thermal technique, it's a warming technique. Moxibustion often uses as the primary herb or plant mugwort, Mugwort. The Latin name for that is Artemisia vulgaris. And there's different ways that moxibustion can be used. We're going to talk about it being used using the pole moxibustion. So it kind of looks like a cigar. And on that fifth toe, we're going to bring some warmth. But moxibustion also can be used where if you imagine this is the acupuncture needle, and you place a little clump of the mugwort on the needle, it can be a warming needle technique. Even with the highest grade of mugwort, which we use Japanese mugwort, it costs about $400 a gram, and it's been processed and aged for several years. And just to give you an idea, like a lower grade costs about 30 cents a gram. So this is significantly more, but this high grade is processed in a way that it can actually be used directly on the skin, and it can help with arthritic joints. So the use of moxibustion is profound. It's a significant therapy and a really valuable therapy that practitioners of East Asian medicine use. But it does have its challenges. One of its challenges can be that there can be a risk of burn with a skilled practitioner that is significantly reduced. And with doing this technique for breech presentation, we have our patients do this at home. So we teach them how to do that. And we're going to do a little bit of a teach of what that's like. But the other thing that is subtle, but it is a plant that we burn, and the different grades have a different aroma. The highest grade has a very pleasant aroma. If you can imagine a pleasant smell of leaves burning, okay? Gentle, pleasant smell. That's that Japanese grade, that ultra pure moxibustion. The moxa that was in the cigar is a lower grade. It hasn't been processed. It has maybe some stems, and it tends to smell almost identical to cannabis. And funny story, not so funny at the time, when it was all the way back in 2001, so over 2 decades ago, we were doing the pole moxa for a patient. And after a few minutes of doing it, the police showed up. And we said, we know it smells like cannabis, smells like marijuana. We're aware of it. They even gave them the product, never heard from them again. It turns out that in the office that we were in, one of the people who called the police on us had to go home that day because they had felt like they were impaired. Now, moxa, this mugwort, is not mood and mind altering, but it just shows that placebo effect in that a positive placebo or negative placebo. In this place, it was a negative placebo. If someone smelt something they had the belief that they had been altered, and then they legitimately did not feel good. So I feel bad that someone smelt something and they had a belief that it was one thing when it wasn't, and they legitimately needed to leave, and that affected their day. But I can assure you that the mugwort is not mood or mind altering at all, even though the fragrance on the lower grades is almost identical to cannabis. That, though, is an important thing if someone says, "Oh my gosh, I've been diagnosed with breech presentation. I've heard that there's this technique called moxibustion and applying that warmth to the foot that it will help turn the baby." Yes, it will, but it's going to require a loved one because it's on the fifth toe. It's almost impossible to get to that point on one's own when they're late in their third trimester. So a couple things. You need to have a loved one do this kind of somewhat, if for most people not familiar technique that has slight risk of, like, no one likes to burn a loved one, so you got to know how to do it. And then the odor is very robust. It's very strong. Ideally, it would be done outside or in a highly ventilated area because it's so pungent. It will stay on one's clothes, and it's not something that most people want to be carrying around for the rest of the day. So those are risks.
No, that was great, Mark. I think a lot of people, when they hear words like moxa or moxibustion, just aren't familiar with what it means, what it is. I know when I use it very often, I forget and I'll say, we're going to use a little bit of moxa here. And they go, like, what is that? Oh. So I think it's important for the patient to know this is very safe. This is very gentle. It's just warming a particular point on a particular meridian.
That's
So
right.
thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how is this done? Well, how it's done is that you have a trained practitioner teach you how to do this at home. And what we do for our patients is we give them, it would look kind of like a cigar. I'm using this pen as an example to demonstrate somewhat of what it might look like. And you would light the cigar, the moxa stick, and then if you can imagine, this is the fifth toe. Okay. You
So
imagine this is my big toe and then my little toe, the fifth toe. And then you have the nail bed, and you're getting close to the nail bed and bringing some warmth. If you have it right here where it's all of a sudden, it's like, I'm not feeling warm. And then, oh, I'm warm, too close. So you want it to be subtle. So you want it to ask the patient, feeling the warmth. Yes. Okay. Let's just let it be here for a certain amount of time until it feels hot. And then once it feels hot, take it away and bring it back. Slow warmth, 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 and then be hot. It's also important to support the hand that's holding the moxa pole, maybe with the foot or so that the hand is steady. And it's very important not to burn your loved one or really anyone. So you want to go slow, you want to be careful, and you want to be trained. And when people come in, I spend about 30 minutes with them. Often, if it's the temperature's good, we'll go outside and I will show them how to do this. After one completes the session on the first to fifth toe, then they would move to the other side. How long? About 7 to 8 minutes per toe. So make sure that the loved one is comfortable and that the patient is comfortable, because it's going to be about 15 minutes. And make sure that they're wearing clothes that they aren't planning on going out in later that night, because they're going to have a very pungent smell that's similar to cannabis. So those are some of the things. Now, we talked about the time period, and that's about 15 minutes total, about 7, 8 minutes per toe. And you're going to do that. You would do that for 5 days in a row. And then after 5 days, you would have the position checked again. Now, some patients can feel that there's been movement. They can
mhm.
feel where the head is, and they just know something's different. But ideally, after 5 days, have the position checked. You can even wait a couple days. Okay. And if the position hasn't moved, the fetus hasn't moved, then five more days. All right. So that's a little bit of kind of the prescription and the way that one would do that.
And I know I've had phone calls where the woman is 36, 38, 40, getting close to delivery time. Everything that I've read, there's the optimal time would be anywhere between 34 and 36 weeks. After that, there's just not a great success rate. What have you experienced?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because in this culture, we're in the United States, it's not as well known, and we want to be very positive during a pregnancy and anticipate that everything will go well, and that's wonderful when that happens. But when there's challenges, the diagnosis of breech presentation has been given, we want to take immediate action. And there was a study in 1984, so long time ago.
Mhm, mhm.
It's 2025, so close to 40 years ago. And this was a study that was in China a long time ago, where maybe the understanding of the value of moxibustion for breech presentation was more well known. And in this study, all studies have flaws. There was about a 90% chance of a breech presentation being corrected. So that's really impressive. But you want to take into account the time, 1984, the place, China, that all studies can have flaws. So that's an incredibly encouraging success rate, but it's worth considering that. There was an Italian study done in 1990, and it had a 60% success rate, which is still really high. So, but again, with them doing the study, maybe they were looking for the participants closer to that 34 week where it's more likely to happen.
Yeah. Good information.
Thank you. So what's going on during this warming technique? This information is from Giovanni Macioccia, and he is a well-known Italian author who has been practicing East Asian medicine for several decades. And this is from his book. He says that the warming of the point that I just pointed out, which is it's called bladder 67, or the name of the point is called reaching yin, is that the warmth increases adrenal cortical stimulation. And that adrenal cortical stimulation increases placental estrogens and also changes the prostaglandin levels. And the increased placental estrogens increase the myometrial sensitivity. And then the changes in the prostaglandin levels increase the myometrial contractivity. And then these two, the sensitivity and the contractivity, work hand in hand. And ultimately, that increases fetal heart rate and increases fetal activity. So I'd like that there is a hypothesis as to what this warmth is doing on this point. So it's a wonderful technique. It's relatively safe. It can be effective, especially when it's done earlier. It does require a loved one, so it can be a great way to spend time with someone when they're maybe concerned about breech presentation and they're giving care. And there's that saying that we may not care how much someone knows until we know how much they care. As healthcare practitioners, just listening, being with someone, being supportive in whatever way is appropriate is of great value. So having a loved one for 5 days bring warmth to your little toe has a value of its own. Why would you want to correct for breech presentation? Well, vaginal birth provides faster recovery. It's lower risk. There is a healthier initial gut and skin microbiome for the infant. There's a lower chance of placental problems in future pregnancies. There's less chronic and abdominal pelvic pain. It's a lower cost. It establishes the breastfeeding and bonding relationship earlier, so that's beneficial. And it reduces the chance of breathing problems in a newborn. So
Mhm.
vaginal birth is definitely the way to go. It's not what's possible for everyone, but if you do have something that's safe and effective, then I think that it is worth knowing about. So that's really what this video is, just trying to spread the word about this thermal technique on the fifth toe. I do like that it is a metal point on the bladder channel, and metal is all about holding on to the things we need to hold on to, but also letting go of the things that we need to let go of. The bladder channel that's about will and determination. Sometimes we might have so much will and so much determination that there's not a lot of movement. So that's just a little bit of the philosophy of East Asian medicine. We provided both a scientific explanation as to why this may be helpful and an idea from East Asian medicine, a
And I like
hypothesis from
that.
East Asian medicine as to why
I
it's
like
helpful.
the fact that you talked about the safety because I've talked with patients and they're concerned that, oh, there's going to be contractions and the baby will come too early. And that's not the case with this. The contractions are very subtle. It's more about getting things through the chemistry of the body, just getting things moved a little bit, but it won't put the treatment itself will not put anyone in danger of early labor.
That's right, and all of our patients that we're seeing are working with either a midwife or a doula or a OBGYN, and we encourage that relationship, and this is just a
Mm.
supportive part. We can educate, we can provide tools and the resources, but we also want to be part of a team, so we're not trying to take over everything, and there's a lot that we know about acupuncture, moxibustion, and East Asian medicine, but there is so much that we don't know about obstetrics, and we want to be part of a team.
And I like the fact that you talked about that team because there's one in that partnership, there's one person that's kind of like doing all the work. They're carrying the baby, they're going through this physical process. But there's another person usually there that is not doing that. And very often little things like this can bring that together so that that partner feels as though, yeah, I'm doing something to help here. This is something a little bit different, really creating synergy between the two of them is like, yeah, I can help you do this.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So healing happens in all sorts of ways,
Oh,
and it's not just the warming of the toe. You would want the person who's applying the warmth to go in with enthusiasm, excitement, support. If someone was holding the mugwort on one hand and also checking their phone on the other, that's different than being very focused and mindful. I do believe that the hardest patients to treat are the ones that we love. It's not saying that one shouldn't ask for help from ones that they love. It's just more challenging. So that's why we do like to have someone come in and we provide them with the exact oops, oh, can't see the exact location of the point and give them the tools to be able to do it. And I've found about 50% of the time it works. The study in Italy said about 60% of the time. I think that it would be higher if we see patients earlier. I also like to do, though, acupuncture on the back, and
mhm,
this we work with large muscle groups. Many patients, when they're late in their 3rd trimester, are already experiencing backache, which
mhm.
can only tighten things up, and I present it in the way that if this if this is helpful for correcting the breech presentation, then great. But also if it's able to help you relax, feel more comfortable, give
Yeah.
you a deep rest, a kind of micro reset that can be profound, then that can be helpful if a C-section is needed. So I like the thermal technique. I always combine it with acupuncture if the patient is interested. Some are, some aren't. But I've found that those who do like to add in the acupuncture have a much higher rate of success.
Yeah. Great, great topic.
Well, I think it's an important topic because, as you know, we work a lot with patients who've been diagnosed with infertility and particularly patients who are doing IVF. And many of them have never had acupuncture before.
Mhm.
And many of them really love acupuncture. They'll say, "Can I continue doing this during my pregnancy?" And I'll say, "Yes." In fact, I think there are many points that would be valuable for you to do throughout your entire pregnancy, particularly for some throughout their first trimester, especially if there's high levels of anxiety or there's been a history of
Yeah.
loss. Often during the second trimester, we kind of take things off. We might see a patient once a month, but in that third trimester, when there can be more aches and pains or breech presentation, coming in for acupuncture is helpful, or learning about the moxibustion, I think, is essential. And it's that saying that we repeat over and over again. It's easier to dig the well before you're thirsty. So an ounce of prevention, that's worth a
Pounds of
pound of cure. And I think that the more you can know about all the techniques that are safe and effective, the better.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thanks for our viewers for watching. And if you're interested in knowing more just about moxibustion and mugwort in general, there is a thorough video that I did several years ago. If you're wanting to see a version of me with less wrinkles, darker hair, and a plethora of moxibustion, check that one out. I'd be excited to have you watch that too. And of course, if you have any comments, you can put that in the comment section below. If you have ideas that you'd like to know more about acupuncture, you can put that in the comments. And if you're in the Atlanta area and you've been diagnosed with breech presentation, give us a call because we would be glad to help.
Excellent. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Have a good day.